Hello.
Hi, great. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're just waiting for everyone to join. Let's
Okay,
give
great.
people a few minutes more and then we'll get underway.
Cool. Wow, I wish my backdrop looked like your backdrop.
You, Tim?
Let him go.
Good man. Can't see you. You join the audio. Weird. Get music down.
I think you're okay because I think you it's all good. I think that's what who knows. I saw you before. Oh, you yeah, you see, I'm just is that my camera? That's just 26 punches. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. Good go.
Oh, that's painful feedback. Just mute everyone. Hopefully that's... You should be muted though. Okay, we were playing with some sound then to see if we could improve the feedback, and I'll just make sure everyone is muted. Okay. I might turn yours off entirely just for that. Okay, that's sounding a bit better now. Hopefully there's not too much feedback. Please feel free to let me know if that's not the case and you're getting horrible sound reverberating in the chat session on the right hand side. So kia ora koutou, welcome. My name's Sarah Wilson, and it's such a pleasure to have you join us this evening for our very first session of the Leadership Mastery Program. I'm part of the coordination team behind the scenes. I also wanted to introduce my colleague Jade, who some of you might already know as well. And Jade, if you scroll along the top of your bar, you'll find Jade's picture pop up. In fact, I'll try and spotlight her for us. Here she is. There she is.
Kia ora koutou. Sorry about that, I just had to change rooms. But yes, don't worry about recording the session. I'll be capturing it all, the video recording, as well as the audio meditation and other resources and lovely bits of homework that Louise will give us after this. So I'll send that through in the next 24 hours for some of those that weren't able to join us for Module 1. So thank you. I'm very excited to share this journey with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jade. And I, in case the sound was quiet for you listening to Jade, so Jade has been doing all of the design work for the program, and we'll be sending out at the end of our session today your IAP, which you'll learn a bit more about in a moment, the recording of today's session and information ahead of our session for next time. So before I introduce Louise, I'd just like to run through a few very quick housekeeping things so we make sure our session flows really smoothly. You are all on mute at the moment, so when you go into your breakout rooms, you will need to unmute yourself, and you'll find the mute controls in your taskbar at the bottom of your screen. If you do have any questions during the session, please type them in the chat area. You'll find that in the bottom of your along your taskbar as well. And I'll be monitoring questions for Louise along the session. I'll gather these into broad themes so we can cover as many as possible in our Q&A at the end of the session. There's also going to be the opportunity to ask live questions at the end of the session. And I'll provide some more instructions in the chat area at the time, but what we'll get you to do is raise your hand, and you can raise your hand. If you look at the bottom of your toolbar, you'll see a manage participants button, and you should see that there's a raise hand tab that you can have a look at, that you can push to raise your hand, and we'll come around to you to ask a live question at the end of our session. You will go into breakout rooms in pairs twice in this session. So you'll see an invitation pop up on your screen to enter a breakout room, and you'll need to click accept. You'll then be in a separate room away from the group, just with your partner, and only the two of you will be able to hear your conversation. So just remember to unmute your sound to speak to each other when you're in the breakout room. By the end of this program, you'll be pros at this, I'm sure. When you have 1 minute to go in your breakout room, you'll see a 60-second countdown begin to enable you to finish your conversation off. And then you can either choose to return to the main room if you've already finished your conversation, or the system will automatically return you when the countdown has finished. Now, I would also recommend that you keep a pen and paper beside you if possible to take notes down. Louise is very good at creating provocations and questions that you might want to record in the moment. You're obviously going to have the full recording at the end of the session, but in case there are any particular triggers that you'd like to record, it can be useful if you've got a pen and paper handy. And there are just two things I want to mention to finish off, and that's feedback and Facebook. So we're really keen for your feedback, so please note down any suggestions for us and include them in the survey that we'll send out to you at the end of each of our sessions. And you'll also be invited to a Facebook group, so please use this to start to build collective resources and share feedback and thoughts, and we'll also be posting thoughts and content there for you as well. So finally, not everyone is online today for our session due to the fact that we've got global participants and time zones don't enable their participation. So they're going to be watching the recording. And if you do have any questions on anything I've outlined before I introduce Louise, then please feel free to put them into the chat box and I'll respond to them right now. It doesn't look like it, but if anything crops up, I will respond to it as we go. So look, on to Louise. So Louise's full bio is on the website, and many of you have worked with Louise before. I personally first met Louise on the Leadership NZ program in 2014, and I love the quote from Sina Wentmore, who's the CEO of Leadership NZ, who said, "If you've worked with Louise Mara, then you will know that it is no ordinary leadership development experience. It's an experience of awakening." For those that have worked with Louise, you'll know exactly what this means and you'll know it to be true. And for those of you that haven't, you're in for a real treat. So I'd now like to welcome Louise to the session, and I'll just bring her into the frame for you. Not that one. Katie's changed her name to Katie. Person. Oh, here we go. Oh, give me 2 seconds.
Hello. Yes, so how lovely to see so many people I know on the screen. I have to scroll a bit, but how cool. So yeah, kia ora tātou, everyone. Just want to add my welcome to Sarah and Jade, and it's been an amazing project to date. And who wants an ordinary leadership program? So let's get into the extraordinary. Yeah, so I just want to say like a little bit at the start around framing, format and things like that, and then we'll kind of dive into the session. But you know, a big warm welcome and delighted for the people who are joining us in this kind of prototype online course, and I think it's going to be great. So in terms of the format each time, we'll kind of keep to some similar format. It might not be in exactly the same rhythm, but a format of some introduction to the theme of that day, some input into kind of some of the theory, some of the ways of thinking about it. We'll have a peer session, probably 2 each session, maybe 1, we'll just see how the time goes. Each time we'll do some form of meditation and guided journaling, and that's why Sarah and Sarah have some paper handy, because we will be doing some meditation just to really relax our nervous systems, because that's so essential, but also some kind of guided questions so that you have time to digest and time to really connect to your own process, which is such an important thing. We'll have time for Q&A each time, and yeah, sum up, and each time also we'll have some homework, and the homework hopefully will be a joy, not a burden. So that's kind of the format. In terms of the content in the course, I really want to be quite competency based, and why did we call this leadership mastery? And I think because there's so much information out there around leadership and management, hey, for the last kind of 40, 50 years, there's a lot. And there's a lot around structure and processes and role clarity and all those sorts of things. And we're not really going to be doing much of that. We're going to be in the next layer underneath, which is the subtle layers, the mastery layers, to really thrive in our lives, I believe. And also, mastery to me doesn't mean you become the master. It kind of means that we continue on this journey of mastery of ourselves and understanding the impact we have on others and the impact people have on us in the space. And these are all subtle competencies that I believe we all had in spades and still do, but in the busyness of life, they layer, which for me helps us in our leadership, but actually really helps us in our life and live an expanded version of ourselves. So that's a real intent I have, is that we all get to really experience an expanded version of ourselves. So some of those competencies, you don't have to remember them, but because we'll go over them, but really thinking about inner space, about digestion and processing, around grounding our overwhelm in the body. We try to process everything through our head, and it's not really equipped for that. Around emotions as wisdom, emotions as intelligence. Congruence, does our energy, words and actions say the same thing? That's such a mastery thing. Authenticity, that so links to that. Prototyping is a way of being, experimentation rather than getting it right. I kind of think we're all recovering perfectionists. So let's really kind of think about how do we live this life of learning, growing, adapting, changing, learning, growing, adapting, and the beautiful flow that can come with that. So, and a lot more as well, but I won't go through them now. I think what's really important, hey, is that you use this time for yourselves in some spaciousness and some inquiry. And to me also, leadership's like a martial art, or like yoga. I learned the first poses of yoga 30 years ago, and I've practiced them for life. I'm still practicing them. So, but it's also that you work at your own learning edge with them. So how do you kind of really think about where you're at? So in some ways it's quite cool being online because a lot of you will be in your own space. So how do we kind of really get that reflective muscle working in a very compassionate way so that you can experience other parts of yourself. So our work, whether you're working in a workplace, I know there's a lot of sacred work in this course. When I look across the work, there's beautiful work, or mahi, as we would say in Te Reo. And whatever you're doing, and it is part of your path. So how do we kind of not see things in the way, but they're actually part of our path and how we work with them. And also those with children. I so know that having children can take up such a lot of space, hey? But how do we also see that as how do we see our children, our staff as our teachers, and we're always the student? And then we can kind of orientate in a way that's quite a beautiful learning approach to life. And I do see a lot of companies out there who say we're a really learning organisation, but really taking seriously that harvesting, learning and growing. I think we're still really learning the depths of that. So just a few guiding principles for this course is you don't have to be good. You don't have to be perfect. It's going to be full of invitations, and just feel what resonates with you and work with what feels right with you to kind of really work with. And don't try and do everything or be perfect at everything, because it's only over 5 sessions, so but we can certainly help set some real bedrock. Yes, and play and experiment with yourself, your life, and this learning way of being. Yes, let's take a little pause, and we will go into today's session, and in the new Kiwi way of saying things, let's do this. So today I kind of want to work with around half a dozen competencies, and I want to start a bit experientially. So just for now, just for a few minutes, close your eyes, and I want to let yourself fully arrive. I want you to feel yourself on the chair or the floor, in whatever space you're in around you. And let's give full permission to, I'm here, I can arrive. Just close your eyes, and we're just going to do a little inward journey, just to do our first kind of experience in this course of self-contact. And I want you to, it's a presencing, like we hear such a lot about growing presence, but that's actually about the ability to presence what's happening in us. So what's happening in your body right now? Do a scan through your body. The areas of tension, and we're doing this with a totally friendly, compassionate attitude. We're not trying to find or make things a problem. Just note any areas of tension or flow, or feel your beautiful bodies. Is it kind of racing? Is it still? It's the quality of your kind of inner quality of your body. So much of our body's water. It's like a soup, it has a flavour. And then I want you just to feel what emotions are present for you as you start this course. You might have just rushed to get here. You might be thinking about dinner. You might be, whatever's there, let's just kind of welcome it in and just think, but how do I feel starting this? What feelings are present? Doesn't matter what they are. It might be irritation. It might feel like, oh no, I have to do this. It might feel like excitement. It might feel a bit scary. Who knows? And then your mind, like what's happening in your mind, as I said, is it somewhere else still? Is it starting to land here in your body? What's it thinking of? What's its state? And then a few breaths just to bring these three things into here is me in this moment. You're the only person who'll really understand why you're feeling like this in this moment. And then we're going to slowly come back. Just before we put you into pairs, I want you to just write one word, if you can, in the chat about how you're feeling as you start this course, just so we can capture it. It might be 2 words, it might be 1, but just as I go through the pair exercise, just write your word in there. And so you've just kind of presenced yourself to yourself. And now we're going to put you in the rooms just for 2 minutes each. So it's going to be 4 minutes. You're going to be in pairs. We've assigned all that. And apparently there's one group of 3. So you'll have to just do like 1.5 minutes each and manage that. So all I want you to do is just presence to another person, how you feel, how you arrive, and how you feel starting this course. And I want the other person who's the listener for 2 minutes to just receive with appreciation. Just give appreciation. And I'll see you back in 4 minutes.
Oh,
So we should pretty much all be back. Is that right, Sarah? So I know that didn't work for everybody. So apologies for that. Not sure exactly why, so we'll have to kind of sort that out for the next session. But hopefully some got to just a presence to another person about how they're feeling. If not, then let's just kind of acknowledge it to yourself. So yeah, and as we come back again, just notice if there's any difference now about how you feel in yourself as to before you did that. So These are kind of the subtle things about what changes in us. Yeah, so just notice. So I kind of, I want to go into, you know, deeper into some of these competencies that we're going to work with, and why I kind of call these the inner selfie. Everyone's busy taking outer selfies, but I really think we need to get good at these inner selfies. And why would that be kind of a mastery tool in a way? Why is sort of presencing ourselves to ourselves and another such a mastery tool? And I think one of the reasons why this is so vital is, how do we know, like I said, what impact we're having on people, what impact people are having on us, what's actually happening in us to actually guide the way we live our life. And I really believe that everyone has an inner compass, an inner GPS, an inner wisdom, that if we really switch on to listening to that, it helps really guide our way through life. But if we don't get used to feeling what's happening in us, not what's, we're often quite good at what's happening to us, then we kind of miss the very wisdom in our life. So really thinking about what part of ourselves do we listen to. We can often listen to the worry. The mind is a very conditioned part of us. So how do we sort of turn this on? So the inner selfie, if you like, the presencing is such a key part of that. And as often as we can do that, I'll often keep reminding you just to pause, relax, reconnect, and see what's happening in you. So also I want to go over an approach to our life and leadership that I think is really important, which I just call saying yes to life. And this saying yes to life becomes a really important part of how we work with life and how we work with the life and leadership. So we can spend a lot of time and exhaustion in resisting all the things that are happening, rather than, as I started this corridor, actually really seeing things that come to us as a bit of an opportunity. So if you sort of think about us, hey, we're like a sort of a pipe in a way, and things come at us in life, hey, things come towards us in order, I believe, often to grow us into a more expansive version of ourselves. But the problem is, isn't it, is as these things come towards us to grow us, that they're often in the form of irritating people, annoying situations, you know, bosses we don't like, chairs we don't like, staff we don't like, or neighbours, whatever they are, hey, they often, and we wish that that was gone. And this saying yes to life approach stops wishing they were necessarily gone, or acknowledges the wish, but actually starts to think, what are they trying to grow in me? So these invitations come, and I call it the childbirth line, and it's the childbirth line because it's trying to birth a new capacity in us. So it's a kind of a developmental opportunity that comes to us to birth this new capacity. But the problem is that childbirth is very painful. So we don't like it. So this whole saying yes to life is very predicated on actually you care about your own growth and development as a primary thing in your life. Because if we don't continue to grow in development, we can get stuck in old versions of ourselves. And if we do care, then as these things come towards us, we think, okay, here's what I need to work with. Here's a new capacity trying to be born, or wonder which one it is. We can have some curiosity. The other approach to life, and not that there's just two, is often that we want to stay exactly how we are and protect ourselves, and we don't want to learn and grow, and we want everyone to go away. And actually that ends up with a lesser version and a not very peaceful version of ourselves, and not one that can really download your whole purpose for your life. So the saying yes to life becomes a really important part of that. And why we need the inner selfies in a process is actually to be able to understand as these things come what is actually seeking to grow. So we draw on our wisdom from the inside and what's happening from the outside, in order to kind of go into some sort of process and digestion. And this is one of the other big competencies, is how I believe in this life of such high pressure that it's not going to go away, and we're so on tap globally 24/7 that we have to be able to digest our experiences. And if we don't digest, this pressure pipe can get very full. We get very overloaded and very overwhelmed just because we're not digesting. So the same as if we kind of shoved ourselves full of food and more food and more food, then we'd get very full. So how do we actually really think, how do I digest my life? How do we really, moment to moment, let experience land in us? If we're resisting, we're pushing experience out. If we welcome in, so we're going to talk a lot about welcoming in, and we start to kind of let our wisdom and this beautiful process that can happen in us, and yes, often painful, to actually be able to ruminate, what needs processing, what needs growing, what needs digesting. So we'll kind of go on to this, and it's going to be in the homework too, is some digestion practices moment to moment at the end of the day, so we can sleep, because if we don't digest our day, we take it into the next day, and we build up more pressure, and we take it into the next day. And it really worries me having 12 people around a board table trying to make a good decision, but they're actually 12 pressure pipes. So how do we really kind of get into this way of digesting? And the easiest thing for the human ego to do is it actually wants to project everything out as a problem. That's the problem, you're the problem, that person's the problem, that situation's the problem. Anything that doesn't start to do this inquiry. So inquiry is such an important thing too, about as part of this digesting. And I really want to say a little bit more about this inner soup I referred to, because if that has no compassion, it's very difficult to have that process, because we just get full of judgment. So how do we begin to actually grow enough compassion? And that's why I talk about experimentation, that goes, let's experiment with a new way of working with this. Let things arise so that you can work with them. So it's letting them come from the outside, come up from the inside, and we begin to have this great cordial, this great discussion of these different parts that come in our lives as learning, as growth, as expansion. And we recognize that some of them are really uncomfortable. And next time we'll kind of look at emotions and emotional literacy, because the more we turn our feeling function on, the easier this process becomes. If we try and process everything through our head, it gets a very busy head. So how do we kind of bring things in working with our body, which we're going to discover as well. So this inner digestion, this creating space to digest our life, becomes such a pivotal thing to be able to process and clean up ourselves in a way, integrate things. A lot of people talk about clean leadership, and what they mean by that is, have I done my own work in a way to make the right decisions outside of myself that aren't me murkily caught up in entangled in the situation, that actually I'm trying to extricate a piece of me. So quite kind of profound things to kind of think about. Let me just check the time. What I'd like to do again is just go into another little meditation, so we allow some of that to digest. And I'd love to try the pair thing again. Sarah, you think that's going to work? Yep, we're onto it. We're sorting our technology. So again, let's just close our eyes and arrive in our bodies again on the chair where we're sitting. And I'm going to just lead through a a short meditation and then some inquiry questions that apply to you. So again, just after talking about some of these competencies, what do you notice is happening in you? Do you notice you've either contracted or expanded? Become more tense or relaxed? Does your body feel open to receive? What do you notice is happening in your emotional field? What's your emotional response? And as we go through the course, we're going to address some of the different emotional responses, but often we can go into some anxiety, or might be excitement, whatever's there, just presence it. And what's your mind doing with just this small bit of material? Just notice its story. And let's take a few breaths and just let some of these concepts land in us, even the bits we might not get yet, or the bits we already know. Let them land deeper in our body, in our belly. Saying yes to life. Do I have a lot of resistance in my life? Or do I already work in this way? What am I resisting right now? We're always resisting something. What do we notice in just this short, a bit of information in a way? What tugs at us to give it some attention? What might we be mostly curious about? How do you usually digest your life? How do you usually process things that are happening in you? And could you see yourself giving more time to digest your experience in life? Do you feel very full right now? Do you create space for yourself and your growth? Is it important to you to learn, grow and expand? It's a never-ending process. If we learn, we grow, we expand. Do you take that process seriously? Do you have an intent for it? And how do you harvest that learning? Just also think about your workplace and your community. Like, how does it treat learning, growing and expanding? And how might it harvest learning? Is that really valued? Because it's the same with ourselves, or families or communities. We keep learning, growing, expanding. We can get stuck. How do your places, your families, yourself reflect and harvest learning? And how does it then grow? What would it feel like if all your staff and friends and work colleagues and children were your teachers and you were always the student? What might that feel like? And then just notice again the quality of yourself right now and how you approach those questions. And what it felt like to have a short inquiry. And let's just slowly connect to our body and our feet. And then slowly we'll come back. And let's try the pair session again. I think there's still maybe one of three. And again, one's receiving and appreciating. This time you've got 5 minutes each, just 5 minutes each. And again, receiving with appreciation, and the other, just presence to the other person as much as you want to, of course, around where your kind of learning edge is, what you're curious about, where you would like to make any changes, or just how anything landed with you. So let's have a go at doing that, and I'll see you back in 10 minutes, and it'll tell you when to swap over. Okay, I think we're all back, and yeah, hopefully the breakout rooms worked better. Yeah, so it's a bit thrust in, isn't it? It's a bit like you show up, you know, for some of you, I know you've come from organisations I've worked with, but you haven't necessarily worked with me yourself. So you've kind of shown up, you're thrust into some information and meditation, then you've got to talk to someone you don't know. Like, hey, that's a lot of vulnerability. So well done on just coming in. And again, in this kind of mastery territory, hey, it's such a key strength. Hey, vulnerability is our strength in a way. And again, we've kind of ended up in such a mad society, haven't we, where, how are you? I'm good. You good? Yeah, you know. So we get so unused to be able to presence ourselves with some authenticity and truth to another person. And it's the most natural thing in the world to be able to do that when we feel there's enough safety in a way. And of course, there's degrees of not doing that when we feel that there isn't. And I guess my challenge to you in this course is to really take the opportunity to keep practicing this presencing, because I know that in workplaces and, you know, there's such different dynamics in a way that they can be safe to a degree, but it depends on what degree that is of how much we can show up. And of course it depends how much safety we have inside of us. So I run a lot of courses, and I notice over the years how more and more people want more and more safety outside of them because they haven't got enough inside of them. So this way of being, this, if you like, yes to life, this working with the developmental opportunities, with our learning and growing, I can't stress enough how much it needs inner compassion. And we can grow this as a muscle, and we're going to grow it, because the more inner compassion you have, the more you're trying things out, not trying to get it right. And often, of course, in our young life, we had to get things so right, or there were often terrible circumstances. I don't know all the trauma that's in this virtual room here, but how do we really practice growing more safety in us so that things can show up, we can digest, we can process, we can work with what's coming, and we can practice being vulnerable in situations where we get the opportunity. And I have such a passion for setting up small groups of practice groups where people actually can practice more and more bringing their full selves, because that's how we find that authenticity, is in practice. So I want to kind of leave some time for Q&A, but maybe just to do a bit of a summary, and yeah, a bit of summary with some questions maybe. But the staying connected to ourself is such an important capacity, and of course we go in and out, so it's probably not correct to say staying connected, but this being able to come back. So I'd like you just to think about now, like, what's a place in your body that feels the safest part of your body for you? Is it your heart or your belly or your feet? Someone told me the other day, like, what's that part, and really feel connected to that part. And part of the practice is, what's my head saying about any given situation, and what might my heart say, or what might my belly say, or what, do you know what I mean? We're going to turn on our inner wisdom in a way so that we start to hear it more and more, and that we can come back. We often go in, yeah, I'm creating a big problem there, let's just come back. We can imagine our head and heart are having a conversation in our heart. Give the head its time, because it always wants to have a say, and then we ask this other part, or whatever part's safe for you, and your heart is sitting around the table, so that we get used to another part of us kind of showing up, so that we come back to some kind of self-contact. And it's really also just coming back, lots of pauses in your day. We can wind up and up and up and up and up all day, and then we're like a pressure pipe, or we can wind up and wind down. Wind up and wind down. It's a beautiful dance we can do. So putting pauses in your life and going, what's happening in my body? What's happening in my emotional field? What's happening in my mind? Just what is happening in me, not to me. When you hear yourself saying, this is happening to me, I want you to start to say, what's happening in me as a result of that? And none of this yes to life means we don't set boundaries and say no. Actually, we're going to cover that next time. We say no clearer, because we know that it's a delicious yes, that we've had enough contact to know that's right for us, or it's a no. That's a real no. And that's an art in itself. So we've covered this presencing ourselves, presencing to another, coming back to connecting inside ourselves. Also, I really want you to think about this, taking your development seriously. It's really important to have an intent around that, and that'll be in the homework, because otherwise life will take over and we will leave ourselves into smaller versions of ourselves, and we won't grow our full potential in our life. And I know for some of them, people online, part of their company mission is to grow the full potential of others. Well, that means modeling the full potential of yourself. So how do you do that? So there's all sorts of intents around radically loving yourself, developing inner compassion, being a full expression of yourself, living your full purpose. Any of these things can become really important. And just, yeah, how do we create some patterns? So this harvesting in the moment, as I say, and then especially at night, even like a 10-minute mind map with you in the middle and your day, all the different things, that the experiences that happened in your day, and feel where the energy is, that you know there's things there to process. You will know. Some will feel clean and some will feel murky. And we either take them forward and we get more and more murky, or we start to digest. Of course, we can use others to digest, but it's so good to learn to journal, digest, and these are some of the practices that are in the homework. Yes, and can we just park our judgment of ourselves and be curious? Because so much of the judgments in themselves in some ways have been helpful to us in our lives. If we even stay curious about those judgments, and we can develop other strategies than just judging ourselves. And remember, let's all keep recovering from being the perfectionist at everything. This superwoman, superman syndrome just means we don't need each other, and that's not right, is it? So definitely need Jade and Sarah to do this course, or it would never have happened, because I'm good at this much and I'm not good at that much. So really helps us build community and humility to know actually how much we need others. So that's kind of a bit of a summary. I'm really interested if there's any questions. If anyone would like to be brave enough to come online or write in the written question. Yeah, it's vulnerable for you to come online, and it's vulnerable for me because I have no idea what question you're going to ask and I may have no clue. So let's both give it a go. If someone has a question, love to see you. You can just do that by raising your hand, and Sarah, or who's sitting next to me, will magically help you appear. So any questions from the field? I'm going to raise you. I think we have a written question, so we'll start with that. Okay, so for those who don't do any process of their lives, will I be covering ideas of how to change this? Well, I guess that's what I was saying is, I think because the world's so fast-paced and doesn't really value reflection, not that everyone doesn't, we kind of need to get off these busy highways. Hey, we're on a busy highway, to have some platforms. So we can get off the busy highway onto a platform and then get back on and then get off. So I'd be really interested in what are the platforms of your life. So for some of my clients, like even getting them to walk home from work becomes a process tool. So I know, like, especially those who are working full time with young kids, this is really difficult, hey, but having some time in your day that you can process your day, like I said, with a mind map or journaling or walking, there was energy left over in these different parts of my day. Can I let the experience land in me? What actually was the experience? We often call things difficult, but we don't go any further when actually we found it frustrating. So we have to kind of feel our own anger. So journaling's a good thing, finding someone that you can digest with, although that means you have to find the person, finding a place and finding a time. So honestly, 10 minutes of a kind of inquiry meditation and a grounding of the day can help you sleep so much better. So really encourage some of those practices, and to bookend your week, a longer reflection at the end of the week. How did your week go? How do you want to start your new week? Some of these can even be just 5 or 10 minutes, but it just starts that muscle, that reflective muscle, very attached to the parasympathetic nervous system, so that you can develop that and learn this dance of being and doing and bringing our wiser self into our work. And I know there'll be a lot of frazzled people in this course because of how fast-paced. So these practices become a must.
We've got a question.
We've got a question live. Yep. Rachel?
Oh, that's me, Louise.
I think it's you, Rachel. Are you coming? Can we see you?
It is me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I think my internet connection's not great.
Well, we can
Louise,
hear you. Oh, there you are. Great.
Hey. Louise, you just talked about that winding up and winding down, and sometimes in the day there can be events that wind us up. What are some things that, and potentially there's going from one meeting to the next, what are some tools or things that are useful for us, or can be quick things that can help us, I guess, do that wind down throughout the day when it's not waiting for the end of the day to digest?
Yeah, great. So some of the tools that I use is micro pausing. So it's such a great thing, hey, and there is a book, Mark Thornton, I think, who wrote Meditation in a New York Minute. That's exactly, it was for New York brokers, but it's this micro pausing. So even between meetings, especially if you're walking from one meeting to the other, really go into presence how you are from the last meeting. It clears you for the next meeting. If you're in the same meeting room, just get up and go to the toilet. I used to do a lot of micro pausing in the toilet. I think it's the one place people can't get you. But really presencing to yourself, yeah, I actually feel quite disturbed by that meeting, or I feel quite, whatever it is, actually note to self, I need to think about what disturbed me. I haven't got time right now, or I do have time. I know that one client I had, it was a multinational business, and he had like, I don't know, 14,000 staff all around the world. He never had a back-to-back meeting. So he always had 10 minutes in between, 5 minutes to digest the last meeting and 5 minutes to prepare for the next one. Now that's pretty disciplined, hey, but I really believe in this world, to be really optimal leaders, we need to stay in touch with our wisdom and help others stay in touch with theirs. And we're not going to do that when we're totally frazzled. So we can actually become the designer of our life to an extent, because I know we're all in community and organizations, but trying to put some of these practices in place. Anything that you can do to pause. It's quite a radical thing in a meeting, just to say, could we all just pause and all just reconnect with ourselves? It's amazing. I often do it in facilitation. Let's all just pause. Because you can feel when the energy gets heightened. Why can't we give each other the gift of a pause? Lunch with friends. Let's just take a moment to pause. That was a big conversation. Like, we're not allowing any integration time. So you can get really good at this, and it's a gift you give to others. Does that make sense, Rachel?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
There's another one there. Concentrating on one thing can mean you can neglect something else in your life. Yes. It's true, isn't it? And sometimes balance itself can become a pressure. And I think balance happens over time. So it's not like we have to fiercely try and balance every day. That's why things like the micro pauses are good. And I do feel like, and this is always the most controversial thing I say in some environments, that your first commitment is to yourself. Your second commitment is to your children, if you have children. Then to your family, work. But if you haven't really got a river in your life that is about yourself, who knows how you're turning up to work? So that does become something that it's not so much balancing out all the things, but you're in the middle of your life. And the more you put in even healthy small practices, the more energy you kind of have for your life. Is it a zero-sum game? Yeah, we do have to trade off some things for other, but I certainly know for me, as I've grown my practices, my energy grows. And I also then know what I'm doing that's just a should that can go. So I'm always in a process of actually sloughing off the old to make way for the new. And sometimes that does collide a bit. So I try not to have a pressure of being balanced in every day or every week, but over time. So I always look at so I've already looked at 2018 calendar and worked out where my big chunks of time are that are just retreat because of the work I do. That would be not great not to, not to be able to arrive with an energy that actually is a healing energy that's just adding more frazzled. This is a bit of a mystery, but I do believe our energy does a lot of the work for us, and we'll talk about that in the next sessions. But managing your energy becomes just as important as managing your time. So yeah, I don't know if that's completely helpful, but take the pressure off balancing every day and think about how that you're in the middle of your circle, that feeds your circle. So you can't overly deplete that. Yes. Yes, so the question is, I feel so tired at the end of the day, 3 children under 3 working, does being exhausted prevent a good end of the day reflection? Yes. What I often say is to young parents is really take some time in your working day. So don't be the person who works through lunch, who doesn't have a break. You can't really afford to do that. So even if you can take half an hour for yourself to have lunch, do some reflection, help you ground yourself, stay in touch with yourself, that's an important thing. And also the drive home or the way you get home becomes really important, so that you can use that as renewal time, some processing of the day, and also some renewal practices. So that's why walking, cycling, anything like that's good, because you can do kind of a breathing, renewal. So there's great renewal practices, and I put some in that package. But it's really important that you do still find some, but it might not be as you get home that's the best time. So we all can design, experiment and play with the best time for us. I've always been a morning contemplator, so I'll often make that my time. So you need to find your own flow and rhythm with these things. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. None of this is easy, but the more we build that muscle and the more our children see us valuing our time, they learn to say that they need time for themselves. So it's also a modeling, and sometimes even reflective practices with your children, like draw your day together. Let's all draw our day together. What did these can become beautiful practices with children. I found them really lovely. My son's not online, or you could ask him, but any others? Okay, so 7:17, unless there was any other wanting to come online. It's wonderful to see everyone. No, that looks good. So, yeah, we've begun, hey, and next time we will be looking at emotions as intelligence. We'll be looking at a bit more of our energy, welcoming in. How do we really, so much of our energy is spent trying to keep difficult emotions at bay, so it becomes such an important thing to do. In a similar format. But we'll post this online. I won't go into the details, but there's what I call the IAP, which is an inquiry action practice tool that I developed. And the inquiry is just a list of questions that gets you into this beautiful way of living of inquiry and curiosity. And it just suggests some questions. On my website, there's a whole lot of inquiries. If you want to look at others because of something else you're going through, we'll send the link to that. The action is creating some new patterns, and it actually does talk about that we do need some structure in our life in order to grow these new competencies, because again, we can just get back on that busy highway with no resting platforms that we step off. So it's got some suggestions of doing some of those for yourself and for your organization. And again, I can send out an organizational reflective process, but I find that that's also something that gets left. We know that culture will eat strategy for breakfast any day. We know that in organizations, and yet we don't really keep checking in on the health of the culture anywhere near enough. So there's some suggestions for that. And then the practice is around really this presencing and inner selfies, so that you get really more and more into the subtle layers of yourself, of what's happening in you. And also in the next session, we'll look at our adaptations as young children to thrive, because they often end up driving us in our later life, and we can add more strategies. So I think that's it from me, unless there's any other questions on the homework. Be great just to give it a go. Don't make it a pressure. Hey, if it's not, no, I haven't done my homework. It's more like this experimentation, that's playing, this compassion. And it's also starting to notice what you call difficult in your life, that you can start to think about how we process that, what's coming up for you. These are all deep topics we opened, but we've started, hey? So let's just pause and presence yourself to yourself as we start to close, and Sarah's going to give some final things, instructions. So again, just come back. Notice, if you can, where your energy is in your body. Is it kind of up? Have you kind of contracted a bit in the lower half of your body? That's what we'll often do in overwhelm. We'll contract the lower half and we'll be up in the upper half. Just see if you can just open it and breathe down through your legs, through your feet, and into the earth. And feel if you can let the experience of today just land in your body, and almost do the same thing, travels down your body, through your legs, and down through your heels into the earth. It's really helpful if we learn the habit of experience going down and coming up and trying to process everything through the head. And notice your feeling state. Notice any emotions. Notice if there's any pressure you're putting on yourself. I should be doing this, I'm not doing that, why am I doing this? See if you can come back to some curious, I'll see what I can put into place next time, over the next week or so. I'll try one thing. And just feel like you fully allow whatever's happening now, and we digest, we take a moment to digest our experience, any frustrations over the outbreak session not working well. Just welcome that. And really note what's your thing that's landed in you to ponder further. And then slowly come back. And you've presenced yourself again. And I work relentlessly with prototyping. I love it. Prototyping's like a small thing to try differently to see what fails. So you're not looking for the perfect. So that's what the IAP is about, trying a few new things and learn what doesn't work for you. And I tried the mind map at the end of the day and that was just dumb for me, didn't work. Great. Try it in the prototype, go, then adapt it. Oh, I might try in the beginning of the day, or I might try before I come home from work. It doesn't discard an idea. It tries and keeps working with what fails to see what they can adjust. So anyway, thank you everyone. Wonderful to see you all. Really look forward to the next session, and please give any feedback so that we can refine, and hopefully I'm not going too fast or too slow, but I'm really happy to hear some feedback, and I'm going to pass to Sarah to finish.
Okay. I'll just turn off yours. So thanks so much for working with us while we also were prototyping breakout rooms for the first time. One of the things that we've definitely discovered is some challenges with the way that participants come into the session, whether the breakout rooms register them. So we'll continue to work on that to improve it for next time. Thank you for bearing with us. I just wanted to close with a few short messages. First of all, a huge thank you to Louise for such a wonderful session. And for those of you who have questions that emerge over the coming days before our next session, please don't hesitate to send those through to us, and we'll aim to build these into the course content going forward. And of course, you'll have the opportunity in the next session to raise any of those as well. There's also the final Q&A session. So, you know, Louise is always really keen to hear from you in terms of what emerges and the questions that will no doubt be of help to others on this program as well. And our next session is Tuesday, the 13th of February at 6 o'clock. You'll receive a link to today's recording. You'll receive your IAP, the inquiry questions from today's session, some journaling recommendations, and a recommended reading list, which does sound an awful lot, but as Louise said, this is really to provide you with a toolbox to enable you to pick and choose what feels right for you or what you feel calls to you the loudest. We'll also send you a Zoom link ahead of the next session with a reminder link on the day. So please do add hello@leadershipmastery.nz to your contact list so that you don't lose any emails into your spam folder in the meantime. Anything else that I've missed? No? Okay. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to catching up again on the 13th of February. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.